A big thank you to Warner Brothers for connecting the podcast with two insanely talented artists who have contributed to the WB100 Artists Series, which you can currently find on the WBshop.com. And of course, I'm going to talk about the first ever fully animated Looney Tunes movie hitting theaters next year. So of course you realize this means podcast.
Are you ready, eager young space cadet?
Meep, meep.
I saw a pussycat.
That is the limit!
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Hello, and welcome to Of Course You Realize This Means Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Graves, and if you're tiny or toony or just a little bit loony, then you've come to the right place, for it is here that you will hear the latest in the Looniverse. And fellow listeners, the Looniverse is expanding. We are getting news of a feature, the first ever animated feature starring Daffy and Porky. And I cannot believe this. It's being headed by the same team behind Looney Tunes cartoons. Pete Moulthrop, Alex Kirwan, and all of the artists over there have been working their butts off for you. And I cannot wait to see this movie. And thankfully, we are going to be watching it in a theater. And this is unprecedented in all of Looney Tunes. The first ever. It took 93 years to get here. I don't believe it, but we're here. The first ever animated Looney Tunes movie, brought to you by the same team behind Looney Tunes cartoons and distributed worldwide. But that's not the only news that came out last week. We also saw from inside the scoring stages on the director's Instagram, Pete Moulthrop posted photos of Joshua Mosier composing and conducting this movie. So we're getting a live orchestra alongside a Looney Tunes movie. And, going back to the 40s, that's how they did it. And I cannot believe that's being translated to a feature film. Now, you may be wondering why it's been 93 years and we haven't had one. And it's because back then, they were more interested in keeping up with the shorts and the shorts accompanying live action films. And so the producer, Leon Schlesinger, was very adamant about keeping them shorts. And with this retro series, they really did throw back to that era. So what better way to have this Looney celebration in a feature alongside Porky and Daffy leading it? I mean, that's the quintessential Looney odd couple. And what better way to, welcome the Looney Tunes 2 feature-length films around the world than with these two? I'm just so excited about it. In other news, we had a screening of Daffy in Wackyland. This is the short for Looney Tunes cartoons, the same team, written and directed by Max Winston, and he did all of the production himself. He's even in the movie, and as a talking head. But yeah, this thing is insanely gorgeous to look at. The models, the sculptures, everything about it just leaps off the screen. I cannot wait for this to be released as well. Maybe it will be in front of the movie. I'm not sure. But right now it's just in festivals. And I saw it at the Animation is Film Festival here in Hollywood, California. Alongside the team, producer Alex Kirwan was there, layout design artist Aaron Spurgeon was there, and of course Eric Bauza, the voice of Bugs, Daffy, and Tweety. So I was so excited to see this thing because I've heard so much about it, and to put it in my eyeballs was an experience that is ingrained in my soul now, and I cannot ever get that out, and I never want it out. But this is the first stop-motion animated short for Looney Tunes, and it is phenomenal. It is, from top to bottom, a work of art. I cannot wait for people to see it. Hopefully it will be on Max, the streaming service for Warner Brothers, soon, but I am holding my breath that it will be in front of the feature, because that would be a fantastic double dose of Daffy, if you will. and I would just be overjoyed by that. If you want to be up to date on everything happening day to day with the Looney Tunes, be sure to follow This Means Podcast over on Instagram, where I update with all news happening in the Looniverse. Now, without further ado, here is my interview with artist, illustrator, and sculptor Pete Moulthrop. Pete, welcome to the show. Let's just get into it. You are collaborating with WB100 in this celebration of legacy of character. What drew you to Warner Brothers?
What drew me to Warner Brothers? Why did I do this collaboration? I mean, I have, whether knowing it or not, for the entirety of the time that I've been involved with Warner Brothers, emotionally, spiritually, artistically. I mean, I've been experiencing Warner Brothers properties and different things in my life since childhood, as many and most of us have. And I guess you could call the collaboration a right place at the right time. I luckily am in a point in my artistic career where most of the clients that I get are word of mouth. So I did work for somebody who knew somebody at Warner Brothers, and they were like, "Hey, what do you think of this artist?" Because I'm not the only artist from this project. And they said, "What do you think of this guy?" And they're like, "Yeah, we think he might be good for some of the animated projects," which worked out wonderfully for me because I was picking things like Gremlins and Blade Runner, and they were like, we like some of the things that you do. What do you think about Bugs Bunny? And I think at that point, I had never even considered that I would be good enough to tackle something like Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry.
Wow.
Like it's almost too sacred, you know?
Sure. They're definitely like, given this pinnacle of existence and in our memory, they have such a high place of regard. So it makes sense that you would see them in that way. But yeah, you created some really wonderful art with Bugs and Daffy alongside Tom and Jerry and Scooby-Doo and the gang. So you really lent your artwork and your craft to really bringing these characters to the forefront. And I was just wondering, like, what is one of your earliest memories of WB animation growing up?
So there's a couple. I was racking my brain. Probably the first, which I'll talk about a little bit. My dad really loved What's Opera Doc.
Mm-hmm. Classic Chuck Jones.
Wabbit twax. Kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit. Kill the wabbit?
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. He used to watch Looney Tunes with me, sometimes late at night, when I couldn't get to sleep, because they'd show reruns on TV.
Yeah.
When I was much younger. Probably my earliest memories, I have two very early memories. One was of I don't know what that owl, the owl that sings, he goes, "I love to sing about the moon and the June and the spring."
Yes, Al Jolson.
Yes.
I love to sing about the moon and the June and the spring. I love to sing about a sky of blue or a T42, anything with a swing or two. And I love you. I love to sing.
I have a very clear memory of seeing that at a very early age. I think at my grandparents' house, and just being like, "What even is this?" And that's like an earworm that's been in my brain forever. And then also maybe the Flintstones. I remember the Great Gazoo.
Elementary, my dear dum-dum.
Oh, yeah.
Just being a baffling introduction to that show, so much that it just made an impression on me just at a very young age. Watching the Flintstones and then having like a floating spaceman. And I liked it too. It had this quality to it, this magical quality. And maybe there's a lot of other, pop cultural, it's sort of like the Q from Star Trek kind of character. But yeah, no, so those are some of my earliest memories. And I could go on, but I'm sure we'll circle back.
Sure. I love that. And also, the Great Gazoo isn't on a lot of things these days. So you know, he has like this ethereal presence in that show, and like, is he real? Is he not real? And is he in Fred Flintstone's head? Which he is, and it makes sense that that would stick with you as a child. It stuck with me for sure. How did you get into painting, and what is your preferred method of illustration, or does it differ based on character and mood?
So I mean, I've been drawing and painting since I was. I mean, a lot of artists, you'll talk to them, they'll be like, since I was a kid, you know, I've been doing the. I started painting in earnest probably in high school, and I struggled with landscape and more abstract things, and I was much better at figural work, which is funny to me only because I always find my anatomy to be a little bit my grasp on anatomy in an illustrative sense to be a little tenuous. But I love
Okay.
the figure, and Warner Brothers like animation is very gestural, very figural, without being too accurate or tethered to reality. So that's kind of a fun little link there. But how did I get into painting was like really enjoying those sorts of things, those characters, those that movement, and trying to capture some of that. Eventually, it just got really labor intensive, and I switched back to just pencil and ink, which is much faster, which is also how a lot of animation and like comic books are made anyway. And
Yeah.
now I do everything pretty much digitally
Okay.
because I feel the technology is caught up. I do a tablet and a pen, and I have a film over my screen that gives a paper texture, and it just sort of like feels the same way. It's like a full circle thing of like the way that they used to do illustration animation, you know, back in the 50s and 60s. Now I'm just doing the updated digital version of that.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's really exciting.
Yeah. Um,
Does a different character connotate a different mood from you, like when you're drawing them, or is it all about texture and poses and the shape of
um,
the character?
no, that's a brilliant question because yes, um, when I approach each character, sometimes it's as simple as like, well, Fred Flintstone doesn't feel like he'd have a blue outline. He feels like he'd have like an ochre outline. If I was going to draw, like, I can draw in any color I want. So sometimes that something as simple and small as that, or sometimes the types of brushes, the type of mood that I'm trying to set. Oh, I want to draw this character more jagged, or like when I was drawing Tom and Jerry, because I wanted them to be these parade balloons, these giant mythic things. These cartoons come to life because the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade has those big balloons, and often these Warner Brothers characters, these cartoon characters, will come to life and float down the street in such gigantic nature that no child who loves that character has ever seen in real life. This awe-inspiring thing. So the weight and gravity of that, capturing that concept, yes, it changes how I approach the image. So like that idea, that emotion will cause me to choose a smoother brush or like a more fluid um color palette. uh,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
so those, yeah.
That's cool. Thank you. And as far as your artwork for the Looney Tunes goes, it feels inspired by Chuck Jones heavily. Did you go back and watch any of those shorts specifically?
Oh, lots. Yeah, because I wanted to get my head back in that space. I watched Rabbit Season, Duck Season.
Duck season. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. I say it's duck season, and I say fire.
Obviously,
Yes.
fantastic one. And let's see, what else did I watch? Just a bunch of like really older ones. I watched some Marvin the Martian episodes.
Very nice.
Oh, goody! My Illudium Q-36 explosive space modulator.
I definitely watched some Scooby-Doo episodes. Like I definitely went back and watched a lot of those because I wanted to try to suss out that decade.
Uh-oh. Like, which way did they go?
They went
that away.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's all right.
In terms of colors, in terms of mood and character.
Yeah, that late 60s, early 70s style was really unique.
Yeah, very, very different. Very painterly also. It made me realize that I needed to tackle, which is, I'm going to say something and then I'm going to undercut it immediately. Watching that made me realize that I really want to and need to, as an artist, tackle painted backgrounds and the architecture of those stills that are just so gorgeous, the moods they would set for the characters to then plod along in front of.
Yeah.
And yet, if you look at all of the art that I created for this project, none of them have backgrounds. Which there's
Exactly.
there's a very specific reason for that. Yeah, like watching these old cartoons made me want to really explore that. But yeah, I watched some of everything. I think Tom and Jerry was an interesting revisit. I can't think of any specific episodes because they're all so they have this comic strip nature to them where they just sort of return to the same pieces every single time. So it's kind of hard to play. I don't want to insult them by saying this because I think they're all unique in their own ways and wonderful, every one a gem. But they all sort of, the Tom and Jerry ones especially, all blend together to me because it's this eternal chase.
I love that. Yeah, it feels very fluid and very vibrant with their colors, with their backgrounds, and with the comedic antics that happen within them. It does feel like it's just one long continuous story. And I agree. Like whenever I think about it, I don't think of it as segments. I think of it as one continuous chase. I love how you put that.
There was a song. Okay, so I used to watch a lot of this. I'm going to go on a tangent for a second. I used to watch a lot of these cartoons on Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network would have these like interesting interspliced commercials or like weirdly sponsored, like what even is this? And I remember there was a music video. The song is I don't want to. Oh, Soul Coughing. I don't want to walk around in circles. Do you remember this at all? Where they
Oh, I'm
took an
vaguely.
old Hanna-Barbera. The music video for this was they took an old Hanna-Barbera backdrop. I think it was the Flintstones, and they had Fred start to walk through his house, and they're using old footage. But then it just the background continues to loop, and it never stops. And then like he starts to run into other characters, like Barney is like hiding behind the couch, and he comes up and he's like, "Fred, where are we?" It's just this continuous, like they never end the cycle. And so you had all these Hanna-Barbera characters like plotting through the same backdrop over and over and over and over again for the duration of the song. I remember that just being so electric and so funny and satirical.
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna have to look that up.
But a fun takeaway from that, and I guess I'm just unpacking this now, is that like as essential and beautiful and mood setting as the backgrounds could be, they were there to become more of a color, more of a wash than to actually. They had to be like present, but not so present that they were distracting.
Yeah.
It's a fine line to walk. I
It
mean,
really is. And I love that you pulled that from that because it does allow the characters to pop out, to really separate themselves from the backgrounds that they're used to being in. So with Looney Tunes characters, what is it about the Bugs and Daffy rivalry, which is completely on display in your art? It's very Rabbit Fire inspired, I would say, going back to that Chuck Jones Hunter trilogy. And I was just wondering if you had any insight or an artist approach to the rivalry and why it speaks to so many people between these characters.
it's tough because I can't. I don't want to speak for everybody. But one of the things that I see in the Bugs and Daffy rivalry, well, okay, so let me break it down. I've always seen Bugs Bunny as a trickster god in a certain way.
Yeah.
Daffy also kind of that sort of character. In Rabbit Season, Duck Season, which I always mix up whether it's duck season, rabbit season, duck season. So that's kind of the point. In
the end, it's
that,
Elmer season.
Exactly. You have a cartoon featuring a guy trying to trying to shoot the two main characters who we love. And in a sense, they're immortals because they keep getting, Daffy keeps getting blown up. And in the next scene, he's fine to fight again. So they're both like godlike characters in a sense. And it's, levity. You don't want to kill your characters. But there's this evidence that Bugs is just so much better at it than Daffy, being a trickster god, because Daffy gets away with stuff too. In his own cartoons, when Bugs isn't there, Daffy fails upwards. Just as often. I mean, every once in a while, Bugs will get his comeuppance, but not that much. And so, like, I think a lot of people want to be Bugs, but realize they're probably Daffy.
Very much.
Like they want to be the person who enters the scene and can just completely flip it to their whim, to turn any of life's challenges upside down, so that now they're the ones dictating the rules of how things go. But in reality, I think more of us, if we even can aspire to be like that, end up being more like Daffy, who
Absolutely.
He's doing his best. Sometimes he succeeds, but most of the time he's failing upwards, if upwards is even possible. Like, but he just keeps plodding along. Like, he's not like he doesn't end up on the dinner table. He's there on the next scene, ready to go again.
I just think the most interesting aspect, as far as what Chuck Jones did with the characters, was that he made Daffy aware of how godlike Bugs is. Daffy seeks that out and he wants that, but it's in that seeking out that is its downfall. Because if he was just oblivious to it, I think he would survive and, get away with way much more than being adversarial.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, what do you think Daffy's shortcomings in seeking to be like Bugs are? Because I would argue it's his anger, his quick to his, because I think both Bugs and Daffy are arrogant, but I feel like Bugs has more of a grasp on how much of a fool he is, and Daffy maybe takes himself too seriously and is quick to anger. Like, what do you think why do you think Daffy fails?
I think it is his own undoing in wanting to one up Bugs. So if they were doing their own gimmick and if they had their own line of thinking within a situation, it would work out. But because Daffy has to one up his, antagonist, which is a self-made antagonist. Bugs isn't going out looking for a rival in any situation, but he is willing to throw Daffy under the bus. And Daffy is willingly going to climb under that bus to show Bugs that it's not that bad. And that is his undoing.
Very astute of you. That's a good observation. Yeah, I've never thought this deeply about it, but there's a certain amount of like, oh yeah, I'll show you.
I actually haven't thought that much about it either. That just came to me. But
well, I mean, to be fair, before we move on, the obvious answer is, why do either of these characters do whatever they do? It's because they're written to do so.
Oh, absolutely.
They're fated to, because it's on the page.
And you somewhat actually quoted Chuck Jones, who said that when he wakes up in the morning, he wants to be like Bugs, but he looks in the mirror and he sees Daffy. Like, that is a Chuck Jones take on the whole thing, because he injected so much of what a human wants out of a situation. And it is to rule the world. It is to, be able to play by their own rules. But in reality, we're not. And Bugs is.
Yeah.
Working with WB, how has that shaped your art, and would you want to collaborate with them again in the future?
So working with WB taught me some valuable lessons at this stage in my career, which was sometimes you get asked to play with some really fun toys, and you might not you might not think that you're up to the challenge or that your work, because I'll be honest, when I was approached to do this, I was like, who, me? No. No, I'm a hack. What are you talking about? But I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to turn this down. This is incredible. I'll step over myself just to get to do it. So that was a lesson, was like, okay, don't be falsely modest about it, and jump at the chance, even if you think you're not ready for it. Sometimes you have to do it anyway. So that was a lesson that I would like to say that I've learned, but who knows? Maybe
That's good
Warner Brothers
advice.
will ask me. Maybe they'll ask me back, and I'll still think, geez, I don't know how they got tricked into thinking I was a good artist to work with, but here we are again. And in some of these, I will say, I really did present something that I had never seen done with these characters before. There's a lot of subtlety in them. I wish I was maybe a little bit louder. I think I have a lot of subtle nods and Easter eggs hidden in a lot of the things that I do. And that's fun. That's a certain aspect of like nerd and geek culture, especially internet culture. Maybe one of the things that I'm trying to learn is how to be more ham-fisted, how to be more blatant with the things that I'm trying to say. I don't know. Maybe subtlety isn't the best.
When dealing with characters that are louder and larger than life, I think subtlety sometimes is undervalued. And that was actually something that I really appreciated about these pieces. Just to throw that out there.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's there are themes that I've been exploring in my art for a couple of years now, and it was really strange experience for myself to like apply them to say, okay, Warner Brothers has hired me. What is it that I do that they might enjoy, that they might want to see interpreted through the lens of their characters, their IP? Instead of trying to do what they've been doing, let me see if what I've been doing will give a note to the great song that is, the lifespan of these characters. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing was the Jetsons Exploded View car, which to me, the miracle of the Jetsons car is that we don't have it yet. Flying car, everybody's like, oh, you'll have that in the future. That's the sign of the future. Well, no, we still don't have it. But also like that it fits in a briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fun part of like not knowing at all how it works, but also I've always wanted to peek inside and be like, well, what does that look like? So I drew the exploded vehicle, not literally exploded, I mean like the diagram of it.
Yeah.
And I got to add parts and whatever, but none of it makes any sense. And you can't point to any of it and be like, well, that does this and that does that. So it still doesn't answer any questions. But I had also never seen it done with that particular part of, cartoon history. So I was like, well, I get to do it. I've been asked to do it. And somebody else can go and retcon it later or do their own interpretation, because that's the glory of cartoons and art. But I got to say, okay, if somebody wants a reference, that's what the inside of that thing looks like. Does it work? Does it make sense? No, who cares? It's hilarious. So that was really fun.
That's great.
Yeah, I guess something I learned from working with Warner Brothers, go a little bit weirder.
Embrace
the weird. Yeah, I think I went weird, but I think I could go a little bit weirder next time, and see if that adds a little something extra.
Yeah. Well, I love that answer. And a smart man once said that music is how we paint time and art is how we paint space. The space you have painted celebrates these characters in familiar ways and new ways. And I really enjoyed, chatting with you about this. And Pete, where can people find you online?
If you have Instagram or social media, I'm at Bearded Tales of Woe. Same with Facebook at Bearded Tales of Woe. You could also find me at beardedtalesofwoe.com. And you can find me out in the real world, popping up in all sorts of random places. Much like Bigfoot, you'll know me when you see me.
You can find his art over at WB100 and the Warner Brothers store. Pete, thank you so much for your time and for chatting with us. What an insanely artistic guy. Now, last but certainly not least, here is my interview with Cocolvu, artist, painter, and animation lover. Cocolvu is in studio with me, and we're here to talk about the WB100 celebration going on right now this year for Warner Brothers. He has contributed some incredible art to this project, and let's just dive into it and talk about what he's created. First of all, Cocolvu, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm very happy to be here with you and to be part of this interview. So I'm ready to shoot the questions.
I will shoot them away. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you've worked with the animation side of Warner Brothers. The history is rich. What is some of your earliest memories growing up with Warner Brothers animation?
Yeah, I remember since I was a kid that I woke up very early every day, like at 7 a.m. I was waiting the day before. I just wanted to see in the Cartoon Network all the Looney Tunes, for example, the cartoons.
Yeah.
I used to see all. I have a very big approach with the Looney Tunes in general. So I used to draw all these characters in a notebook since I was like 8 years, 10 years approximately.
Wow.
But I just draw all these characters just for me, like a hobby.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was gonna to be my profession of being an artist. So because I even work in and I study in a business university here in Mexico, and all my friends told me, "You're an artist. You don't have to be being in the finance numbers." Economics and all that, and I was like, no, I want to do this because I just saw drawing like a hobby. So
Yeah.
that's the approach immediately for me was the Looney Tunes and all its characters, all the characters.
I love that. It definitely starts at a young age, and curiosity and just, admiration for the work that came before. And it feels like you were inspired by that.
Yeah, I have different styles. I like to draw in the first of all, I like to sketch always in black and white with a pencil, and after that I like to scan, because I think that if you have in paper all the painting or the illustration, and then you have the sketch, and sometimes I do in analog, just analog, another I do digital. I use a lot my iPad in the Procreate program.
Okay.
So I like to jump from one technique to another. So I am not married with just one. And because I also make big murals, so sometimes I am in the computer with a digital illustration work using Illustrator, Photoshop, and Procreate, and sometimes I'm just in a very high building painting a big mural. So I like to jump, and I'm like sometimes I'm like I don't like to be just in one technique or style. That's the point.
No, I love that. And you can definitely tell that you come from like a painter's background. Now, the work that you've presented for Warner Brothers is more of a mosaic, if you will, of all the character faces. And I was wondering if you had a favorite face to draw out of all of them.
I like in this case for the 100 years I used like Bugs Bunny, of course, like a main character. I didn't like that Bugs Bunny that much because he was like always like a lot of he was too happy. So I have something with this character that I didn't like, but I recognize that he's the main character, like the protagonist. And that's you call it that like that, Daffy? It's
Yes.
Daffy, yeah. Because
Daffy
here in
Duck over
Mexico
here.
we call it the Pato Lucas.
Right.
And here is Pato Lucas. So it's completely different. When they make the translation, you say like, "What? Pato Lucas? What's that?" And I like that he was like he has like a very unique personality. Even when he speaks, like it seems like he's always angry, and he's like sarcastic, and he has all this. He's very funny. For me, he's the best. I love that character. So yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely the comedic backbone of Looney Tunes for sure.
Yeah.
So, the WB100 celebration is celebrating every story into adulthood. Do you have any fond memories of Warner Brother movies or TV shows?
In terms like in general, I like a lot. Also, for example, like the Batman. Uh, uh, I love like Batman and Superman and Flash and Wonder Woman and all these characters. Um, but when I make this piece for the 100 years, I choose Batman because for me it's like the best. I like all the movies and all the different directors that they make the movies and all the different styles of the suit of Batman and all the protagonists and the actors, and I love that that character and that movies in general of Batman.
He, he's
So
he's a great character. Do you have a favorite Batman movie?
I think that the one of Christopher Nolan. I love that movies and I love that director. So for me, it's the best. That's the best Batman. Of course, when I saw
Absolutely.
when I saw the first Batman with Jack Nicholson as a Joker and of Tim Burton, it's also like wow, no, it was the first one, you know. But when you see it now, it's like what was that, you know? But but in that moment was great, you know. And at the end, it's also because it's Tim Burton, so it's great.
Yeah, I love his gothic approach, but Nolan pushed
Yeah,
forward. It was
yeah,
different, but it was grounded in a
yeah,
really fun way.
exactly, yeah.
How has working with Warner Brothers shaped your future, and would you want to collaborate with them again?
Yeah, of course I will I will love it. For me, like this opportunity was like great, you know, for my portfolio and curriculum and everything. Is like what I think that this give me a lot of good reference and I even enjoy a lot when they told me, okay, you have these five movies, and we're like, what were my favorite movies? Like I am making a poster like for Blade Runner, like the wow, like Mad Max, Inception, so
Yeah. So
Batman, the Looney Tunes, and it was funny because when I post in my Instagram all these movies, where the one which I have like more views and likes were was with Bugs Bunny, you know, because I think that people feel more approached to their childhood
yeah.
with these characters than the movie of Inception that maybe is like more in an art movie, for example, no.
Yeah. Definitely more modern. But
Yeah,
Bugs Bunny reaches a really broad audience.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
But
So
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, I would love to do more stuff, so let me know, I'm here.
Well, your work is phenomenal. I think it speaks for itself, and you definitely have an artistry that we love to see. So I would definitely love to have, more collaborations between you and Warner Brothers in the future for sure.
Yeah, I would love it. And even for example, the style that I use in all the art that I did were like very like saturated stuff, you know. In my
Yeah.
work, I have like this thing that I have. I used to have a girlfriend that she was an art historian that she studied art, and she told me that I have like a thing that she says is the horror vacui that's in Latin, and horror vacui means that you have horror to the emptiness. So
Oh, I love that.
if I see a space of in white, for example, I want to go and paint something in that space, you know, like to fit it up. So in
Yeah.
my house here in Mexico, I have all the walls are completely like full of paintings, full of it. So for example, you can see just in this space I am showing to you, I have
Wow.
all every wall in my apartment has a lot of art. So this is, for example, I'm talking. It's my studio. So here I have more, and I love to have art in my place. No, I am an art collector, and I have a lot of books of illustration, a lot of books of art and of photography. So that's my passion. So all the time that I'm here in my studio, I like to see one art, one piece, and I'm there. So I have all this research for me because I have like a photography memory. So all the reference when I am in my studio working are good reference to create and to have like a good research or to have like inspiration for work. And I used to when I have like this project with you, I make a research also when I make all the sketch and everything, for example.
Well, Warner Brothers is very lucky to have you, and your art behind you is incredible. I love just the different colors and the way that everything is symmetrical, and all the helmets and all the like the masks and everything that
Yeah,
you showed in the other room. That's really cool.
yeah. They're like very Mexican, those masks, and I paint them. So yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah,
so cool.
we have here, Mexico. We have a lot of history and a lot of culture and a lot of color and a lot of things that I feel inspired, not just to be in my place, like just watching or seeing some books or videos or movies, because I think that my biggest inspiration it's at the street. When you go to the market and you see all the fruits and vegetables and the colors and the persons and all this richness of that you can see it on the street, musicians playing music at the street, and the people and a lot of characters that I inspired with characters or persons that I see. Sometimes I project them in some of my characters and make like kinds of superheroes, but the people that are selling the fruit and the vegetables in the market, and I make them like superheroes, for example.
That's
Or
fantastic.
yeah.
So where can people find you online and check out your work?
So it's Cocolvu, Cocolv, small b, U, Cocolvu. So you can find me like that in Facebook, but I see more like I work more with Instagram, so
Okay.
you can check that. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. And then I'll definitely be linking to your stuff over on This Means Podcast on Instagram and Facebook as well. And Cocolvu, thank you so much for your giving us your time today and talking about your wonderful art. It's always great to talk to artists and people who are passionate about presenting these characters in new ways.
Yeah.
Be sure to check out both of their works over at the WBshop.com, and you can also check out Cocolvu's portfolio on his Instagram at Instagram.com/Cocolvu. And you can check out the podcast over at X, formerly Twitter, at OFC This Means Pod, or of course the Instagram, as mentioned previous, at This Means Podcast, as well as the Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep up to date on everything going on in the Looniverse. And as always, that's not all, folks. Thanks for listening.